Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Omniverse of Nick and part 3 to the Mcqueen Walking Dead crossover story. I'm your host, Nick. Before we get into today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment so that way you don't miss anything on the channel. You stay updated. You can comment your own what-ifs and see them come to reality, or just general discussion, and just generally support and recognize the future potential that this channel may and will have to offer. With all that said and out of the way, let's get into today's part of the Mcqueen tale. Now, Rick and everybody has gotten to the Atlanta camp, with Rick finally ready to introduce Mcqueen to the Atlanta camp and to his family and Shane. Lightning McQueen drives up and introduces himself in a very cool, casual, and completely Lightning McQueen way, and hopes the same, or at least a really amazed reaction, but everyone is just perplexed, scared, and completely dumbfounded at what they just saw. To be fair, the people in Atlanta, and less than with Rick, were the same, but Rick calms them down and says, you don't gotta be worried or anything, and Rick explains what happened ever since he got out of the hospital, with Morgan finding McQueen and pursuing to take him instead of the horse he found, and what's happened since then in his goal to help Lightning and maybe him help them. But Shane just sees this all as not so much a facade, but like a joke. It's some kind of twisted joke from Rick to try and... he thinks Rick's lost it from being in the hospital. But seeing that Merle and everyone else in the Atlanta camp is actually really believed on the whole prospect, seeing it right in front of their faces, Shane and Merle actually get into a scrap, which would be the first time I ever did that in any of my stories. And they actually get into a fight with Shane attacking first over Merle arguing against Shane about the whole prospect and Lightning being very, very real. But Lightning just revs up his engine really hard and angrily and says to both of them, stop the fighting, and shows them how real he really is. More directed at Shane because he knew that Merle was siding with him and he doesn't want anyone fighting over his behalf. But him asserting his authority was probably the worst decision he could make, because Shane just backhands Merle and gets his shotgun and aims it straight at McQueen, now seeing he's a threat. But Rick, just from behind him, aims his gun square at Shane to protect his newfound friend and show that he's really McQueen's friend and his protector. And Shane looks back at Rick, dumbfounded, and angrily shouts at Rick that, really? He was about to shoot him? For that car, that threat, that abomination, after everything he did to protect his family and what he's done? He's really gonna do that? And Rick said, no, but I'm pretty much this car, Lightning's protector and friend. I promised myself that I would stay there for him and that we would both help each other. And he's not a threat, and tells Shane to verbally calm down. Shane voices his opinion on the matter, though, and says, this car is a threat. It's a talking, sentient car. There's no way that it can be trusted. And just before he's about to take action, or anyone else, they hear a voice agree with Rick and them on the whole prospect. It's Daryl, who makes his debut and says, if the dead can come back to life and eat people, then surely a talking car isn't too out of the question. And he says that he's willing to help out and he believes in the whole thing, even though it completely comes out of nowhere and all that. But he thinks that it's real enough that he'll stick around to help. along with his brother. It's definitely intriguing to Daryl. And Rick, he thanks Daryl and Merle for this, especially considering the fact he never expected them to side with him on the prospect, especially against his friend Shane. But now he says that not only will he be taking charge of making sure Mcqueen is better than what he was before he ended up here, he's also going to be his friend, his protector, and just his general caretaker. And he wants to not only help him become a better car, but he wants to make sure that everyone can trust that Mcqueen will help them try and get their world back to the way it was and possibly get him home. Daryl says, it sounds reasonable, just completely crazy. And Rick, he agrees with this on a level. He's surprised at how much he's agreeing with Daryl, who just basically showed up out of nowhere. But he looks to Mcqueen to see what he has to say about all this. And Mcqueen, he agrees with it and thanks Rick for believing in him so much and wanting to help out to this level, and really thinks of him as a great friend. But before they can think about anyone else to help out with Lightning, who's really a car specialist or a tool specialist, the walker who originally was in the Atlanta camp from the start makes its debut, weirdly, and Lightning is scared, seeing the first walker that he really gets to see. But Rick tells him he can't be scared. There's no reason for him to be scared. He's a car. There's no way that a walker, if all it can do is bite, can damage or turn Lightning McQueen into some zombie car or anything. So all he has to do is just ram it. That doesn't take it out. They got it. And Lightning McQueen just smiles, and he's right. He can just take it out by himself. And with that, Lightning McQueen just drives straight up to the walker, rams it so hard and so fast, it sends it flying way out into the woods and into a tree where it would either get impaled, get hit, and then fall down and die, or would get hit, fall, and then the rest would just take it out. It really doesn't matter. Either way, Lightning McQueen has killed his first walker. And Glenn's like, yeah, this car is freaking impressive. And he agrees to be one of the first to volunteer to help out the cause of Lightning McQueen. After that, Daryl and Merle decide to put their heads on truly getting the job done with Lightning McQueen and stick around to help out, because even they have to admit that Lightning McQueen is impressive. After that, Rick says they've gotten a decent amount of people so far, and already T-Dog and a few others too. They just gotta keep on going with the rhythm they got going there and keep the Atlanta camp secure, and yeah, just pretty much keep doing what they're doing. While all that's going on and they're all, chillaxing, Lori and Carl get a first-hand experience of being around Lightning McQueen. Carl especially, it's like a little kid's dream, getting to stare face to face at a sentient car. It's amazing. And Lori, she can't not be amazed, even for Lori. And she thanks Lightning for giving her husband the drive after he got out of the hospital and really giving him a sense of purpose after all of what's happened. And Lightning says that he honestly never expected to happen either, or meet any of these people, but he does really appreciate the gratitude and all the friends that he's making so far. But then he looks down, seeming rather sad. And Lori notices this and asks him, what's wrong? And Lightning says it's nothing, but he's just remembering someone who's really close to him back where he came from, Radiator Springs. Someone who honestly changed him for the better and who he was with. Another car, a girl named Sally. And he just really got a vibe from her whenever Lori just came up to talk to him. And it just makes him think back at home what everyone must be thinking. If he's dead or missing, what happened to him? And he just doesn't know, like, what's going on back there, and it's really messing with his head. But he does fondly appreciate everyone being so compassionate, and Rick taking up his own bond with Lightning McQueen to fix him and become his friend. It really shows the kind of man Rick is, and honestly, Lightning thinks he's probably the nicest person he's ever met besides another old friend of his, Doc Hudson. Lori says their love ain't perfect, even if they are back together. And even with all this, she knows that Rick and everybody here, herself included, they'll find a way to fix Lightning even better than what he was, and they will get him home. And also try to fix their world in the process, an eye for an eye. So we got Daryl and Merle, we got Glenn, and we got T-Dog, and Shane reluctantly offering all of them so far from the people that we have to fix Lightning McQueen and continue the work on him, and so on and so on. With Rick leading the charge, obviously getting much more better into cars than any canonical version of him ever. And Lightning, he's even pretty much back to the same point he was after his wreck in Cars 3. So, he's pretty much back to normal, and even pulls off a signature ka-chow in response. Rick's never seen McQueen this happy, and it honestly makes him feel really good. But then Dale comes up to him and voices his opinion and reasoning for not helping yet. Because he feels uneasy with what went on not too long ago when McQueen was brought into the camp. With Shane and the whole fight with Shane and Merle, he just feels uneasy that having McQueen here might create more tension than, good. And he honestly just wants to leave behind the prospect of helping for now, just to wait to see if tensions die down. But it's not that he's against Lightning. He knows why Rick did it. He just wanted to tell Rick how he felt. And Rick, he's honestly surprised at Dale for thinking this way and thinking more will come out of it, because sure, there might be, but he's acting like truly bad things will start happening. And everyone's pretty much on board besides Shane, kind of. And he honestly thinks Dale's kind of right, but not at the same time. So honestly, Dale just leaves with Rick to stew on these thoughts. And McQueen was near the area, so he heard bits and pieces about what just happened. So he decides to ride over and ask Rick what's wrong, because he seems really deep in thought and concerned about something, and he knows it's about the talk they just had. And Rick says not to lie to his new friend, that Dale just wanted to tell him about his reasoning for not helping yet, and that Dale, he's a very perceptive person. He thinks about things in a really, really big way, so to speak. And he just thinks that with what the tensions have been brought here since McQueen arrived, Dale just didn't want to help out until they died down, which Rick blames McQueen not a speck for. It's just Shane and him being the way he is outside of others' beliefs. But he knows that the tensions will die down, and he'll make utter sure of it, and he will continue to lead everyone to not only trying to fix their world, but get McQueen fixed and back to his. And McQueen, he is concerned about this, sure, because what he saw of Shane earlier. He aimed a gun at him, for Christ's sake. But he believes and trusts Rick very, 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 very much. So he just says okay and smiles and rides off. And I also want to bring something up. We have the bag of guns, and that means no trip back to the city. And that means everyone has all their ammo. And that's because they didn't give any to the Vatos gang, who they also didn't meet, which I'll touch upon in a very short minute. But anyway, just figured I'd bring that up, because it's gonna put a little bit of a weird spectacle on the story, so to speak. We get to Lori telling Shane to stay away from the family, and Rick being there for it, sort of, and her telling Shane with even more gusto about Mcqueen, and it basically boils down to Lori being even more on Shane's case, but logically so. Even more so in this story, which makes Shane even angrier when he beats the ever-living tar out of Ed, almost actually killing him, much more so than in canon. Speaking of canon, which I just mentioned a short minute ago, we're not getting the Vatos gang because they didn't meet them because they had no reason to. But that doesn't mean with all this we're going to get dry story, because what I just mentioned, that stuff. It also means the Vatos gang's just gonna die the way they did before in the deleted scene. Merle is also with the Atlanta camp and has both of his hands. So that was the main reason why they went back in the first place. So yeah, quite a bit has changed, obviously. And Merle and Daryl talk about the whole prospect of Mcqueen more and staying and not thinking about just doing their original plan of robbing the camp blind. And while Merle says that honestly, he would have rather stayed up on the roof and just wondered what he would have done from there, rob the camp like Daryl just recommended with the original plan, or just gone off on their own. But that was before Officer Friendly brought a talking car into the mix, and now he's pretty much endeared to wanting to help, which Daryl can agree with, and it fully signs him into the cause too. Then we get the situation with Jim digging the holes, and Rick is there along with T-Dog, Daryl, and Glenn, since they don't have to go to the city, and that situation would be dealt with a lot easier and honestly better. Not to say it was totally out of control, but it was a bit, serious, especially for what happened next. Then we get the Atlanta camp pretty much chilling down in the night like they were, with Lightning, along with a few others, obviously, being there to see, especially Lightning, how peaceful everything is right now. And Lightning, he really loves it. But then he sees something out of the corner of his eye, a walker. And this actually scares Lightning, but he doesn't act until he sees who it's going towards. Amy, who just opened up the RV and was walking out slightly because, bathroom. And at this point, Lightning McQueen just screams and tells Amy to watch out. She successfully does, and this puts the Atlanta camp on edge since they now know they're being overrun in the camp with walkers. But it doesn't go as badly as you might think it does. Ed, oh, for sure he dies. I've got some Ed what-ifs planned for the future, but this isn't about Ed. And what would he do with Lightning McQueen? He is basically just dead meat. After that, Lightning, along with extra hands, helps to get rid of any and all walkers in the area. Which Lightning doing it would be frigging awesome, especially ramming into them and everything. And Rick and them being there and not going to the city and actually being there the whole time, that means basically no one besides Ed and the random people that were unnamed would die. Maybe even not even all of them. And it also means Jim would not get bit, and Amy, who I just mentioned, doesn't get bit either, because she was the first one to get saved by Lightning. And even if she wasn't able to get out of the way, Lightning would have already seen the walker and rammed to show that things were getting serious. Either way, Amy's living here, which would help Andrea's character. And also, we then get to the morning where everyone would take out and burn the bodies, and Carol would take out Ed and, that. But not everything's all peachy. Merle. During the night attack, he was the only one to get bit. He was bit straight on the back end of his hand. The same hand that he lost in the original. Daryl sees this, and he's honestly worried for what might happen to his brother now. But Merle, he doesn't want Daryl to have to do it, so he'll just do it. And he gets an axe and prepares to chop off his arm if it's not too late. And honestly, he was expecting to have to do something similar like this as a last-ditch effort if he remained up on that roof. But thankfully, Officer Friendly had a change of heart and brought him to the cause here. So, honestly, this was just a simple mistake on his end with everything that happened. So, he just does the deed himself. He takes the axe and he slams it down onto his arm. Kind of like Rick did in The Ones Who Live. Poetic in this story. And yeah, even if there wasn't the same exact prosthetic that Merle got, I do feel that they would have something similar lying around. Something that would be very much acquainted to Merle's prosthetic. So, just for the sake of the story, and for consistency's sake, and with Merle, I'm gonna say it's gonna be the same prosthetic. Just the blade part of it will just be added at a later point, or it would just be a different blade. Anyways, Lightning is very glad that he got to save the group, basically, and got to participate in doing all that. But he is sad for those who did die, even if they were just random unnamed people. And he's sad for Merle having to take off his arm, especially with how much Merle's been on his side. But he tells Rick and everybody he's going to do even better to not only show what fixing him will do for the greater good of their group, but he will show that he's ready to make sure that every one of them stays alive as long as he can help them. And Rick, he definitely sees a new sense in Lightning since he saved him. It's really built up his character, and says that now he can actually put his plan into action, go to the CDC, which they mention, and maybe even there, they'll have even better stuff to make Lightning McQueen better than before, since he's pretty much at where he was probably before he wrecked, right? And Lightning McQueen would agree on this and say, yeah. And is once again very compassionate and grateful for everything that Rick and everybody's done for him, especially Rick. Once everything gets set to go to the CDC, Morales and his family decide to still go to Birmingham, which, in my opinion, unrelated note, is probably one of the most stupid decisions in the entirety of writing in The Walking Dead. Yeah. So, they're gonna die. Well, not Morales, we all know that. And Amy and Jim are saved from death. So, they're going to be tagging along for the ride alongside Merle and Lightning McQueen on the journey to the CDC. And things can go a lot differently here, especially with Lightning, because it could actually turn around the tables of what Dr. Jenner plans to do. But that's all for today. Now, what do you guys think will happen next? How did you like the episode? And what's your favorite part so far? With all that out of the way, be sure as always to like, subscribe, and comment your favorite part, series, and future requests for what ifs and general discussion on the Omniverse of Nick. With all that out of the way, guys, truly hope you enjoyed this episode and the new intro-outro aspect of the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.